Hi book lovers, welcome back to my channel. As you can tell from today's title, I have some interesting books to talk about. I wanted to do a Halloween themed video, but something a little bit different than the ones that I usually do. I normally would pick up like a dark or spooky or gothic romance to read for this season, but I changed things up a bit. I basically read the wildest Halloween monster smut that I could find on Amazon. Like I literally searched up Halloween smut and monster smut on the Amazon search engine, and you know what? It delivered. I read some ridiculous books. Some I was pretty surprised by how much I enjoyed them, and others not so much. So let's get into it. Let me tell you guys about the 6 smutty Halloween novellas that I read. Starting off with the tamest of the ones that I ended up reading. I guess I wanted to ease my way into these, but I originally picked this up because of the title and the cover. And I thought it was so funny how the cover and the title were so wildly different in terms of vibes, because this novella is called Slammed by the Minotaur by Sam King. As you can see from this cover, it looks so cute. It's got a cutesy little minotaur on it in his prison guard uniform. The hero is a prison guard minotaur. So the heroine is human and she just got sent to jail, to prison, over defending herself from her abusive ex who is a cop. She's sent to the slammer because of her assault, and the hero is one of the prison guards there. He's the only one who is actually nice to her and treats her like a human being, but there is some intense lust going on between them from the moment that they meet. She's like, why am I feeling all these feelings for a minotaur, and how can I act on them immediately? They are so hot for each other, him over her especially. They're just constantly eyeing each other while in prison. These two do end up hooking up in jail. I think it happens in the bathroom, and obviously he is ginormous. There is some predictable suspense with the cop ex-boyfriend, but other than that, the romance is pretty sweet. Like I said, it is fairly tame in comparison to the other novellas that I'll be talking about, but it's still a monster romance with a minotaur hero. I don't read them that often, but I did fall in love with minotaurs after Morning Glory Milking Farm. I gave it 4 stars. It delivered exactly what I wanted, which was a monster minotaur romance. It's pretty sweet, very short. It's definitely something easy to dip your toes into if you haven't really experienced any monster romances before. The second novella that I read was an actual Halloween smutty novella. It's called A Burn for Jack by Aiden Pierce. All of these authors I have never read before until I read them for this video, so these are all very interesting, new to me authors. A Burn for Jack is a novella that takes place on Halloween. The heroine, she comes from a family of witches, but she doesn't really believe in all that paranormal stuff. She just knows what she's heard from her family's stories, their history. Also, this one is set in high school. I was a little bit taken aback by that when I first started reading this, but I was like, okay, let's just see where this goes. The heroine, she is from this small town and she has been bullied her entire life because of her family's reputation. And this Halloween, she makes a bet with her biggest bully. They go out to this field on Halloween night. She bets that the Pumpkinhead monster does not exist and will not show up that night, and he and all of his friends think otherwise. So her family's witchy story, their history, she had this ancestor hundreds of years ago who was believed to be a witch. She and her lover were burned at the stake for their witchy, crazy practices. And while they were dying, Jack, the lover, the man, he promised himself to the devil. He pledged himself to Satan in exchange for saving his love's soul. So that soul has been reincarnated now into the heroine, and Jack, the Pumpkinhead, is the hero. And of course he shows up that night to claim the heroine. He waited hundreds of years for her. He was in hell for hundreds of years for her. So he has become pretty monstrous. He's this 7-8 foot tall man. He's got like the body of a man. He just has this pumpkin for a head. He's very happy to murder people, and he's got some vines on his back, like growing out of his back, kind of like Doc Ock, and he absolutely uses these vines to play with the heroine along with his very long tongue. Just imagine this super long tongue shooting out of this Halloween pumpkin head. It gets pretty dark and gory and violent here. Like the heroine's bullies, they attempt to sexually assault her. Jack does murder them for her though, so that's something. There's blood play, breath play, a lot of bondage with Jack's vines. There's a lot packed into this smutty novella. I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't my favorite. Like the smut was great, but everything outside of it, I just was feeling very meh about. Also, there is some artwork at the end of this ebook of the pumpkin head hero in case you wanted to see what he looks like. So here he is. He is basically a giant man. He has the body of a man and a head of a pumpkin. You can see the vines on his back and his very, very long tongue. But his tongue is actually not the longest tongue that I read out of all these 6 novellas. This next hero has a red carpet length tongue, so I'll be getting into that. So then I read The Loch Ness Monster by Siggy Shade, and yes, this cover really looks like this. I could not believe my eyes when I saw this while I was browsing. I couldn't not get it after seeing this cover and seeing this title. I just had to know what was gonna happen in this book. And yes, it was really weird, but it's a Loch Ness Monster romance, so what could I expect? The novella starts off with the heroine who is a normal human. She is in Scotland. She's arrived there for her honeymoon just without her groom because he ended up standing her up at her wedding. But since everything was paid for, the honeymoon was paid for, the heroine and her best friend go to Scotland on what was supposed to be her honeymoon. Unfortunately, that best friend isn't actually that great of a best friend. She ditches the heroine to hook up with this younger man and just trash the honeymoon suite and rack up all these bills. So the heroine goes rowing, of all things, on this lake, and that's where she comes across the Loch Ness Monster, only he's not in his monster form. He's a shifter. I don't know how or why, but he is. And at first he appears to the heroine as a lamp, like Aladdin's lamp, and she hears this voice that tells her to start rubbing the lamp. And like, sure, if you've watched Aladdin, you think there's gonna be a genie after you rub it, but no, the Loch Ness Monster actually tricks the heroine into rubbing the lamp and rubbing him off. Instead of a genie coming out of that lamp after she rubs it, it's actually semen. She accidentally jacked off the Loch Ness Monster while he was in lamp form. Honestly, by this point, I was like, what is going on here? But I still kept reading it, so I don't know what that says about me. The heroine goes back to her bed and breakfast, and the Loch Ness Monster shows up outside her door, and this time his red carpet length tongue rolls out into her room, and he kind of seduces her into sitting on that tongue and using his little taste buds that are mini penises so she can get some pleasure out of it. I don't know. And if that wasn't enough, we do have some twists when it comes to the best friend and the now ex-fiance. It turns out the reason why the heroine got stood up was because her fiance cheated on her with that best friend, and he got genital warts out of it. It was just nonstop craziness getting thrown into this novella, but it was so entertaining. I mean, I can't say that I loved it. It was still too weird. I give it 3 stars, but I did absolutely appreciate that the cheaters did get their comeuppance, that the heroine got her revenge against them and lived happily ever after with a freaking Loch Ness Monster. And then I read another Halloween themed smutty novella. This is called Hours for Halloween by Violet Taylor, and this one was my favorite of all 6 novellas that I read. I give it 4 stars. It's definitely the hottest one in my opinion. Also, I know my lighting changed. Just ignore the fact that my sunlight is not here anymore. It's reverse harem. We have 1 heroine and 3 heroes, and all the heroes are some sort of monster. This one also takes place on Halloween night. The heroine is on the way to a Halloween party when she gets a stalker. He's a stalker wearing a mask, and he saves her when some car ends up running her over. He then takes her over to his own party with a bunch of his friends, and some girls are there too, but he has 2 best friends. Like, it's a group of these three guys who are very into the heroine, and then things get a little weird when the guy in the mask, one of the heroes, he announces that the ladies are there for a specific reason and that they're basically meant to be the brides of these monster guys. The girls have to drink the guy's blood and then the guys start turning into their real monster forms. The three main heroes, they're pretty interesting. They're not like a specific type of monster. They're kind of a mishmash of stuff. Like, one of the heroes, he is this sort of sea creature. He's got tentacles and gills. Another hero is like pure metallic black and he's got this scorpion tail. Oh, and he can shoot lightning. And then the last guy, the third guy, he has some wings, his skin glows, and he has the power of fire. So I guess it's kind of elemental. We have sea, fire, and lightning. Also, the way that these monsters turn into their monster form, they like shed their human skin, like they just pull it off like it's a piece of clothing. But anyway, this is when things pretty much turn into an orgy. I mean, everyone is paired up in their group, like the monster with his bride, and they all just start doing it out here in the woods near each other. Everyone can see each other, hear each other and everything. But of course we have like the main reverse harem group. This girl, the heroine, she obviously is freaking out, but she's also very intrigued by them, by these three monsters. We have some MM action going on, MMMF, MFMM, like all those different sorts of combinations. It all happens here, and the heroine gets dicked down so hard. She literally starts squirting and drooling, like she is on another plane. She's having the time of her life, and it was pretty hot. There's also a little twist at the end of the book that made things a little bit more interesting, but other than that, it's a hot reverse harem. Why choose monster romance? It's a pure smut, and I definitely recommend you read it if you're looking for some Halloween smut to read like on Halloween. And then the fifth novella that I read, it was called Insatiable by Rune Hunt. This one, I love the cover. I really wanted to like it more, but it was just not for me. The writing was pretty bad. I mean, I'm pretty forgiving when it comes to some short and smutty novella. I don't expect too much out of it, but the writing was just too glaringly not good. It constantly would shift between past and present tense. I was like, just pick one please, just stick with one. There's grammar mistakes, punctuation stuff. So if you are not a fan of reading books where it's not, you know, properly edited, this one is not going to be for you. But it did have a somewhat interesting premise. The heroine is part of the shifter pack, but she's not a shifter herself, and she's been bullied by the alpha's son her whole life. And it's a tradition that every year the pack sacrifices a human to their local monster in exchange for protection. And this year the alpha son forces the heroine to be that sacrifice. This monster hero, he looks like the cover. He's got this deer skull for a head. The rest of his body is human-like, like he's got 4 limbs and he's bipedal, but it's just all covered in dark fur. Also, he's huge, of course. What monster hero is not 7 feet tall? When the heroine wakes up in the monster's house, his humble abode, she realizes that he's not exactly the monster that everyone thinks he is. She does try to escape though. She runs into the woods but gets caught in a bear trap, so he takes her back to his house and helps her recover. So honestly, it's a pretty chill monster romance. Nothing too dark or gruesome. The darkest parts about this were definitely the bullies, the heroine's bullies. But honestly, the writing was not good. The story was all over the place, very jumpy and not cohesive. And also, there was something that happened at the end of this novella that had me shook. I was reading this on the plane and I had to take a pause from this book because I could not believe what I was reading. This monster loves blood. He loves to consume blood, and the heroine just happens to start her period. So he just got really hungry for her there and went to town. It probably wouldn't have been too bad to read, but then the heroine like sticks a finger inside of her and takes it out and gives it to the hero like a popsicle to lick at. So I was a little traumatized from that, I'm not gonna lie. But even if there wasn't that scene, this is still a 2-star novella. And then I saved the wildest one for last. I finally read Unhinged by Vera Valentine. This novella has been making its rounds because of how ridiculous it is. It's about a hero who is a door, like a literal wooden door. Apparently he is the son of some god. He was a tree originally, but then he got chopped down and turned into the heroine's front door. She rents this apartment and the landlord is this super creepy guy. The hero has this consciousness where he's able to see things and hear things as a door, and he loves when she grips his door handle. Because he can see things, he knows that the heroine's landlord is a creep and a murderer. The heroine is his next target, so the door hero, he tries to warn her. He goes into her dreams to warn her. He literally tells her that he is her door, and she is so confused, understandably. And the only way for him to save her, for him to become more human-like so he can save her, is for her to have sex with him as a door first. And this girl eventually does it. She uses his doorknob as a dildo. She puts a little condom on it and everything. I was like, this is absolutely ridiculous. But after they have sex, after she has door sex, he magically transforms and shifts into a human man, and things do become a bit more normal here. The hero loves to be praised. He's like this little golden retriever puppy around the heroine. I mean, he's been in love with her since he was a door. And the funniest thing is that he'll turn into a door every full moon or once a month, like a damn wolf shifter, except instead of turning into a wolf every month, he turns into a door. I gave it 3 stars. I mean, I really don't know how I feel about this one. I did not love it. I didn't hate it either. The writing was pretty flowery for a novella about door smut. So this was definitely the wildest one of the bunch for me. I can't say that door sex was on my bingo card for 2023, but I can check it off now. So those were my 6 wild monster romances for the Halloween season. Even though I didn't love most of them, I still had a pretty fun time reading them just because of how ridiculous they were. If I had to rank them from least wild to most wild, I would say the one at the bottom is Slammed by the Minotaur. It was honestly super cute, nothing to complain about there. And then I would say Burn for Jack is next, mostly because the guy is the most human looking one. He just happens to have a pumpkin for a head, like a demonic pumpkin head. And then it's Insatiable. This hero has the deer skull head. This one is more wild, but mostly because of the period thing. And then I would say Hours for Halloween is next, just because the monster heroes, they were all very unique monsters. They were nothing like I'd ever read before, and I did like the twist at the end. Unhinged and the Loch Ness Monster are kind of neck and neck when it comes to being the most wild, but I guess for the second most wild, I'll give it to the Loch Ness Monster, just because at least this monster is an animate object, unlike a freaking door, which is this inanimate object that I never expected anyone or any author to make a romance about. So Unhinged gets the most wild trophy for this video. If anyone has read any of these novellas, let me know what you think. If you're looking to read some monster smut for Halloween, then these are some ones to try. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I had a fun time reading these novellas. As always, links to everything will be down in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!